Well, hello there. I'm Mark Risen-Hopkins. Welcome back to Merge Roundtable. I'm joined today by Frank and Jim, who are going to be talking with me about Sam Altman's wonderful performance on Capitol Hill today, as well as some other topics I'm sure we'll get around the horn and talk about a lot of different things. But Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, better known as the company that makes ChatGPT, was being grilled by a cadre of senators, including Senator Graham, who legitimately asked if Terminator was a likely and plausible scenario. And to which Sam Altman replied, absolutely, we must create a licensing agency for AI. Only people who get the license should be able to make AI.
It's a good hook. Give me a second. Got to roll that intro, you know.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about that, the intro, but we got it now. So, yeah, anybody, did you guys watch any of the hearings?
I've seen Terminator.
Yeah.
If that's close enough.
Yeah.
And T2. And
Right.
some of the other ones, but I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah,
Much like Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, me and Al Gore made the internet, so yeah, I totally get it. Yeah.
So I actually didn't watch all the hearings live because I thought to myself, hey, I know how to use AI. I'll just get a transcript generated and then I'll have ChatGPT summarize it for me. The problem with that is ChatGPT 4 is too new, and so there's not enough servers on it, and so it runs out of memory when you try to you hit your daily threshold. ChatGPT 3.5 will tell you it has summarized it, but it invents senators who don't exist and tells you what they said and what their stance on AI was. So I firmly believe we may be needing to regulate AI if that is the best that it can do.
I think what I found kind of interesting about the whole process as a whole was that they actually are taking it sort of seriously. I think finally technology has come along and they've realized that those things that weren't going to happen or weren't going to be able to happen they happened, right? Mm-hmm. So we see the internet, we saw mobile phones, we see AI, and now they know that it is definitely going to help and companies are going to use it. So now they may as well get in there early and regulate early.
Right.
So did you hear, is it supposed to be what are they talking about, the atomic energy or something? Who is it that they're looking to regulate this?
Well, it depends on which senator you ask and which person at the congressional hearing you ask. If you ask Sam Altman, there should be some American agency that's established for this. There was a couple of other folks that were there. One was like an IBM liaison to governmental affairs who thought there should be an international body of experts that create the standards. Very IBM answer.
You guys are so learned about this. Am I the only cynic?
Oh no, you're.
Let me just check out. You're suggesting
I never said that I think it was a great idea.
that a congressional hearing is serious, that they're actually looking at it, and it's anything other than theater. I mean, the guy who's creating and pushing it's like, we need to regulate stuff, and your first question's not, is your thing broken? Did you do something wrong? Are you trying to shut out your competitors? Were you told to do this by Microsoft? Was this something to China pay? I mean, that's the first thing that comes through when these jokers get up, because they can't be honest about it.
Yeah.
And the idea that the Senate can do anything, they're just going to write something that says that I'm not allowed to use my phone without paying an extra toll to AT&T unless, I mean, that's what it always comes out to. But it's interesting they're talking about it. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. It makes me a little nervous as to all the people that are talking about it. Just because, you hear things like a guy saying, why is it that you're able to talk about this? This is all popping into the regular community. We see this on LinkedIn and Twitter. Everybody's got an opinion on it. You get into a cab, people start talking about ChatGPT. I hear about it in my physical therapy classes where they're all talking about what it is and you make fun of the one guy who didn't know. Mm-hmm. So clearly this is a huge media thing that everybody's chattering, but they don't know any of the basics.
If you look at just stock market reaction, if you take a look at a lot of the different companies, what is it? Today the market was down again, so it's like 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 11 days in a row that the broader market was down, and this is the first day that the NASDAQ's been down because people are buying a lot of companies like NVIDIA and Apple and Microsoft and the players in this new, what they're thinking maybe, well, it probably hasn't gotten a bubble yet, because if you take a look at the price to earnings,
Oh, right. The
it's
cost.
still pretty low. But if it does become as big as people say, that they think they could grow into those earnings. So that, I think, is artificially inflating some parts of the market. That if you take a look at Home Depot's earnings that came out today, they were not that good, and they guided poorly, and the market was down, but not the NASDAQ, because they're going to make a lot of money, and they can't. The regulation, that would be bad.
Oh, it would be bad for everybody. I mean, to me, it's just classic case of regulatory capture. It's no surprise whatsoever that the CEO of the market-leading company for AI saying, absolutely, we should regulate this because I don't want competition. Guys, come on.
Right. I thought it was the $1 trillion investment it takes to launch that stop the competition. Like, how much more expensive can it get?
Look, that guy's pretty clever. Did you say? I mean, he's not terribly old, and he has gotten funded by Elon Musk, by all
Yeah.
these people. I mean, he got it off the ground and was supposed to be a nonprofit, but
Yeah.
I guess he could change that.
Well, I mean, but the thing is, it's first is worst.
Yeah.
He open sourced a lot of what's there. I mean, obviously the data is closed model, but the code is open source. He spent 10 years creating ChatGPT, GPT 3.5, GPT 4. Stanford created a weekend at a hackathon to create a clone that does the exact same thing and lets you roll your own.
Right.
So
Right.
it's just add data.
And what does it really
so that'd
provide?
be good for a sandbox, right? That's great
Yeah,
for a company
absolutely.
that wanted to start their own and didn't want somebody to have access to theirs. So that's
Right.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is he does have something to fear because
Sure.
he's not the only person in the world that can buy hard drives.
We've seen how fast. I mean, people are talking about it. You said it, right? Everybody's
Yeah.
talking about it. So I'm surprised how fast, like Adobe, like all these companies are saying, oh,
They've
yeah,
all
we're
launched
using it.
That's terrifying.
I feel like saying that I'm a financial advisor. I use AI. Give me your
There are
money.
literally
I'll be better.
people who do
I
that. Well,
bet there
that's
are.
the problem with that hype. The one guy did it and said, "Oh, I'm going to put $100 and let ChatGPT make all my decisions." And they started bragging about how he's up to like $24,000, but his investment. I'm like, you didn't make money. You talk to others. That's a Ponzi scheme. So what you're saying is you're really good at that. So now we got people using it for content, recruitment, marketing. They're posting on LinkedIn. They're flooding socials. But they're all really bad at it. But you can be good at it. It is possible to put prompts in there to get stuff that you can't detect. In the meantime, kids are using it like crazy. They're using it to pass all their gen ed courses.
Exactly, yeah.
So you've got to change the way you address so much of that. But that's the problem. But that's been true of almost all automation. A lot of this stuff has been around. If you're good, you can do a lot with it. What's weird is when the people who are just learning it, they get so excited about productivity, but they don't want to change their rates. And I'm like, so you just want to work harder, give that away to somebody, and then what? Because someone's going to come along and do that even cheaper. No. Automation's about tricking your boss into thinking you're working harder and charging more to do less. These people just want to work hard to be employed for one more month. It makes no sense to me. And then, of course, you've got a lot of CEOs like, this is great. We don't ever have to hire again, or we can blame it on
Yeah.
generative AI. And boy, the number of mistakes, though, it's...
I wish I'd given this to Sahil before the show, but this
Slack
is
it to me.
Yeah, I'll Slack it to you in a second, so you can put it up on the screen. But this is a graph of a bunch of standardized tests, mostly high school and AP and college course. Some of the names at the upper bound is the AP Environmental Science, AP Math, AP Government History. Somewhere in the middle is LSAT. So like
But see,
these
that's
are
so silly. So
these
that's
are
the
these
problem, is
are
the tests were
these are scores by 2 versions ago GPT.
Yeah, so it can answer questions in a test. So, and this is what people are starting to get is, oh, you turn in a paper to me or you turn in a work product to me. I got an easy way to catch you. It's never been hard. Hey,
Ask
what did you write
questions.
about?
Yeah.
What? Because they have no clue. Because if you actually did the work, you know it. And the thing is, teachers have to change. The colleges have to change. But, I mean, honestly, who was the last time someone learned something in college anyway? 1992, 93? When did I graduate? 93. So the 93 was the last year anybody learned anything. They've been dumbing it down ever since. So this isn't a bad thing. But the question is
Efficiency, right?
this idea to hack everything. I don't know what you do. You eat your seed corn, and when you do that, it's great for me. I love being my age because I've done everything, and these are just great tools. But I look at some of the younger folks, and it's not just that they don't have the the attention span anymore of anything. It's that they literally don't know how to do something and don't know how to work to failure. It's like watching those 8-year-olds on TikTok that they get a gift and they just break into spontaneous tears because they've never suffered anything. And then you see a 20-year-old doing that, and you're like, guys, do you guys realize this is almost trauma for these kids because they got a gift of slip? You think, this is really odd. What have we done? And they're like, oh, this is funny, and let's watch that, and let's turn our cameras on and record people. And I look at it, I would keep wondering, do we all just have to go back? Is this going to be either the Amish? And you know the traditional Morlocks and the Eloys? Is it going to switch around where the people who went into the woods are the only competent humans left? And all the elites are just going to be fat people being taken around given Starbucks and not mattering because they all have the same hive mind?
I saw
That would be really funny. That's a good, we should write, well, probably already written by ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Reverse the time machine and see what,
I was out just on my way back, and we stopped off at a fast food restaurant and was watching a young man interview for a position at this fast food restaurant. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what do you have to say to not get the job? Right? And then it hit me that there's a lot of people that can't talk to other people anymore at all. So maybe he's actually going to make it. You know?
Yeah.
But being a young man that's actually interviewing face to face and having a conversation, maybe he'll make it. But that's pretty sad to think about, right?
it's weird that it comes into your head. You're like, gosh.
I finally turned into that guy. I feel so bad for you people. You're not.
Oh no, let's not get into an age discussion. I was at a rodeo. Friends of mine were watching these barrel racers, and I'm 49 years old. It's probably embarrassing to throw out live on television. I'm 49 years old, and there's all these pretty young, fit women running around on these expensive horses and doing everything. And the first thought that comes to my mind, if I had a son who was 21, he would have a lot of dates this weekend. Like, that's the first thing and that's when you're like, wow, I am really old. I am really, really old. I'm thinking of children from my wives from my non-existent children. That's how bad.
Right.
I've been on this planet too long.
Oh my goodness. Oh, you're too young to be thinking that, my friend. You're too young to be thinking that.
Yeah.
Well, they were nice, you know. These were country
yeah.
girls, so this wasn't Lower Greenville.
Well, I mean, so this has kind of been the topic for the week. I've been looking at what's been coming out on the channel. This is kind of the discussion that you guys were talking about too, with the AI and content. The whole AI being a plug-in inside a video. It's really, it is, on the one hand, it is kind of a party trick that every AI is able to pass a test. I think it speaks more to the problem with standardized testing as a metric for merit-based jobs. But then on the other hand, we do see AI replacing all the jobs that we don't actually want them to replace.
Right.
I would prefer that AI replace like the farm worker, the something that's like hard and, you know, it's not something I don't want to do. Digging ditches, not drawing pictures and making music and doing videos. That seems like the jobs that I want to have.
Working on a lift over moving traffic.
They can't hear you. I'm going to try this out. I'm sorry. Entertain the people.
Oh, with dancing? That's your version of dancing?
It'll go on TikTok later.
That is terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying that you can even suggest that.
I mean,
Just kick.
everything we do goes out somewhere.
Yeah, who was it? We were sitting at one of those fight clubs in Dallas, and on stage, one of the judges decided to zing the guy talking about using ChatGPT for marketing. And he goes, I had it write a poem for my mother-in-law, and she cried. So do you think that it understands emotion? And my first thought was, have you thought about maybe going to your mother-in-law and talking to her sometime so that she's not so overwhelmed by a poem that she starts crying? I mean, maybe that's a lack of human connection that's slightly different than, oh my God, I elicited emotion. But like, yeah, I don't even have to, because like, that's great. So you wrote a poem and she cried. Good job. What happens when she gets 30 a day for the next 30 days? Because everybody she knows realizes the same thing.
Right.
Because that's one of the issues, is what is authentic human connection, what works for it. I don't have a problem with automation. I have a problem with the people using it and then pretending that somehow it's the same. There is a value in creation. We used to talk about this with blogging. You don't blog for other people. You blog to learn what you know. It helps you think and focus. And if you're just letting an automation do it, really, what are you doing? What's the point? Make a little money here or there. Well, then you better make it really fast. That's why you have to raise your prices. Because whatever you can do for $500 today can be for 5 cents tomorrow, and then it's flooded. And now there's no space for human beings if we all let AI write everything and do our music. And I'd rather it be bad. That's why the 80s, everyone loves 80s music, because it's terrible. They're ugly. They have voices crack. Some of them can't hit notes, but it's unique. Once the 90s came along and they perfected music with that, was it odd? Somebody from like Norway came up with like the perfect hook for pop music, and then they all do it after that.
Sweden.
And now nobody cares about any of that music unless they had
Max
a direct
Martin.
personal connection to it.
Right.
No one listens to Britney Spears now and goes, "That's great." But you can listen to Tainted Love and go, "That's so weird. I kind of like it."
Right.
I think we have to acknowledge and push that, because right now it's all, everything you do is going to be gone.
Yeah, but you realize your generation, like the kids, like your music was crap, Dad.
No, they don't say that. They love it.
I know.
Are you kidding me? Gen X got cool
No, they
all
won't.
of a
I know
sudden.
they won't listen to you, but they'll listen to your music and watch your movies
Well, they
and
said
wear your
they saw it on
T-shirts.
Family Guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's I heard a remix of Tainted Love the other day. It was actually pretty good. I'm like, that's terrible.
Yeah. On TikTok is the end to every sentence like that.
On TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
not just the period or the punctuation at the end of that.
what's they think it's brand new.
Yeah, this is
And that's a lot of tests.
Yeah, the ones that made me laugh the most were all the lawyer exams that were easy to
Well,
pass.
standardized testing is unfair. It's discriminatory. It should be absolutely gotten away with, because, as we all know, you should get everything you have based on who your parents were and how rich their parents were, not how smart you are. That's the key to.
Well, I
sort
mean,
of
I think
mating,
the better thing is well, because standardized tests don't fix that. Because if you don't have access to fine pedigree and good education, which usually comes with fine pedigree, then you might not do as well as somebody who did on a standardized test.
And we're trading off who your daddy was for.
Well, I
your parents
fear
over time.
I fear that something where you've got scarcity of jobs, then that's going to be the default, unless you can actually talk and connect, to somebody. And if you are able to connect, then you will get a job. But you have to be someone that can connect. Otherwise, there's going to be there's 4 jobs available at this law firm. Who's going to get the job?
Yeah,
The guy who actually, whose kid actually spends a lot of money there.
I mean, that is a. But I mean, that's we're talking about Trisker. We have scarcity of, it's not even jobs right now. We have scarcity of workers, and that's going to get worse for the baby boomers. And the challenge is, if you look at it, I think that zero interest money had a lot more to do with that.
Oh, sure.
So we've got
Yeah.
all these trends hitting at the same time, but the problem is there are companies that, there were zombie companies in Japan, we talked about them, where they just existed because they could roll over debt.
Yep.
And how did they do it? They didn't raise their wages. They didn't improve their services. They just kept buying it. It's the old AutoNation model, where you buy a car dealership, you run it into the ground, and the next year you buy the one next door. And now you could go, we went from 10 to 17 million. Yeah, but you lost 3, but it looks good to the investors. They did that over and over and over again. So there are all these companies that all they do is buy another company with debt to improve their stock ratio. That goes right back into the stocks, and then it's like the working poor. They're still not making enough. They can't get ahead. There is no sense of promotion. And those are the jobs that you can't fill. And now you've got the UBI and other ones. I mean, it's hard to get a conscientious worker, but the real question is that because of the pandemic? Is that because these new people just don't work hard enough? Or is it actually a rational response to what's the point? They've seen their parents laid off. They've seen divisions laid off. They've seen entire cities crumbled. Why would you work hard? Because some boomer said to do it?
I have a different thought. So now you have more people that are actually working, and you probably know this more than I do, but like more people that are actually working that have like several full-time jobs, right? And as I've said before, that we're pretty efficient. Well, instead of being a waste of time for one company, why not be a waste of time for 3 if you could do the work?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because just because I guess I'm old, I'm like, you can't do that. You can't work for 2. If you're going to do that, be a consultant and split out. I don't feel bad about it now. Like, I don't want to do it, but I'm not going to yell at some. I mean, how is that different than what we did when we outsourced jobs?
Yeah.
I mean, that was how is that any different? As long as you're getting the work actually done.
Okay.
The problem is we teach people. Look at all the folks laid off, especially in my industry, in talent and acquisition and HR. There's a lot of people that were paid a lot. They were working for these big tech companies. That was their dream job.
Sure.
Oh my God, I'm making twice or three times what I was making before, and I think they're in IT. What no one ever told them is that every 10 years or so, we dump about half the people in the industry because there's such low barriers to entry. And that
We can hire somebody
there's a big
without
difference
saying
in
it.
that pyramid. Why would we keep all of you? So now they don't know what to do. They got all these high salaries. They're actually not good at their jobs. These are the ones that are going out right now, applying to 1,000 jobs or more, and then going on LinkedIn and saying, I applied for 1,000 jobs, I can't get an interview. And you're supposed to feel sorry, but after about the 500th one, you're like, why are you applying to so much? You're a rat hitting a pellet in a cage, and somebody... This is a thing that recruiters have to do. Occasionally, you actually have to be rough, and you have to look at them and say, what you're doing is wrong, and I'm not going to make you feel good just because I have some empathy and some sympathy for you. Stop being stupid and pushing that button like a rat, because you're not going to make any change because you're tricking yourself into thinking you're looking for a job.
So answer this one. Riddle me this one, because it's actually happened. I have a client who... is now empty nested, graduated from college, congratulations, and she applied for a job at a hospital to do medical coding, which is what she got her degree in. Now, to be clear, I actually ran a doctor's office and hired people to do his medical billing claims, so I know that no one actually has a degree in that. So she applied here in town to one of the hospital systems several times using her resume, sending it in through the proper channels,
Right.
and was told politely that you're overqualified, and she had no idea what that meant. So she reached out, like I told her to a friend who actually works at that hospital, and she got an interview and she got a job. And it was based on the fact that, well, we can't believe we missed it. And she goes, well, which time? I submitted it to you twice. So what's happening in that bottleneck?
I blame AI.
Why not?
So what happened is,
you and
without going
Sam.
into a very long history lesson
Sure,
about it,
yeah,
electronic resumes became a thing, and companies got overwhelmed. And they
Yeah.
started building these internal departments, and then they got overwhelmed again, and they started outsourcing and RPing over those things. And so the problem is you have all these different systems in places, and then we have to go faster. We have to easily apply. We want to get people in fast because we have to hire right away. And what happens is we've absolutely overwhelmed all of our internal systems. People don't realize recruiting can't be fully automated because there's a human component to it, and lots of people fall through the cracks. When I look at them individually, there's always something really weird. They decided to make a funny PDF. They refused to fill out something. The fields weren't set up as something. There's lots of reasons why they were hitting click, click, click on the wrong thing. And they don't realize that it's like working for the government. There's 700 systems, and there's no one right way.
Yeah.
And there's no information online you can go to because everybody has a different idea. And it's not like you can listen to recruiters. They only know what works for their system. So instead, we think of recruiting and hiring as one easy thing. Everybody's done it, right? No, it's far more complex than that. And that is a challenge.
Yeah.
How do you get it through? Because we've been obsessed with more and more numbers. And we've reached the point where digital marketing was 20 years ago. Now it's about conversion. Now it's about quality. Now it's about digging into your system, making sure you're not missing those things. Who do you actually call? Asking real questions, focusing on skill-based hiring. How do you... We were having people creating new resumes, which is great. The challenge on the other side is how do we begin to sort those? And that goes back to AI legislation like they just passed in New York City with the audit. You're not allowed to sort things in New York City unless you have a third-party audit that says you're not discriminating. Because they built all those tools, and what do those tools do? They look at your current group of employees. If you built it off people from the 70s and 80s, they're going to be older white men. By de facto, now you have disparate impact. So it's complex because people think this stuff is easy and they want to automate it. But you automate something when you've nailed it, when it's perfect. Right. We haven't nailed it because human beings are weird.
So what about human resources? I'm asking you questions that I've been fascinated about, and I just see getting worse and worse. Because like human resources as a department never gets paid for saving the company money. They're there to help with the resources, the benefits, for making sure you're placing the right people, that the benefits are actually being paid on time. You've got payroll, but what percentage of the company is it? It's really pretty small.
So human resources came out of personnel. So old people talk about personnel in the 80s, and they started creating human resources. And in the early 2000s, we created talent acquisition. Because the problem is it's in operations. You don't want somebody being innovative with your payroll, your benefits, and compliance and those types of issues. So the challenge is you have this innovation center inside of an operations team. It's not tied into revenue, but it's vital to the company. It's only about 20 years old. People don't realize that, and it has been growing, but there's that essential tension. If you save money, it doesn't do you any good. But what happened basically is when marketing was eating the world and CTOs were taking all of the budget, operations was not about to let recruiting get pulled away into something else. So they created TA. And now a lot of our systems are purchased because of the needs of finance. Because your payroll system, you need to have that connected. That's a very important part, because if you mess it up, bad things happen. So you're not going to have the fancy stuff. And you have all these different systems and vendors. I mean, you probably don't know this, but the number of unicorns in the HR tech space is enormous. They keep getting bought and being moved around.
Yeah.
And part of it's just we're new. We're relatively new. We're a decade behind marketing and a lot of IT, but the expectation is the same. Which is, hey, I'm in recruitment marketing, I'm in TA, I've got a CRM. What do you do with it? And then you get blank face. What? No, I bought it. I signed the check for it.
Yeah. Okay.
And
So
what do you do?
how does it work? Right.
You cut half your staff every few years, and then you're like, well, why can't we hire? It's short-sighted, focused on. You know who doesn't have a problem hiring? If you paid $100,000 for a fast food worker, I bet you'd get some pretty good chefs in there. But no one wants to do that. Right? No one wants to spend that time involving it because it's hard. And honestly, as TA and HR folks, we've not done a good job explaining what we do. We don't talk data. What's the one?
Well, you don't even own your data in a lot of cases, and that's when I say that, I mean,
I know. I see what you're saying. You're accurate.
So I manage 401k plans on a regular basis, and I integrate and work with the heads of people operations, human resources. There's so many definitions to try to keep people from feeling bad about their position, I guess. I'm not quite sure that one. But I work with the
it
heads.
It only hurts because it's true.
Yeah. So I go to I work with the 401k people, and of course, I look through the census information to figure out which vendor I want to use, ease of doing business, so on and so forth. And then they can't pull those reports up either.
No.
As a professional, as a financial professional, it's hard enough for me to decipher those reports. Meanwhile, every year on that 5,500, they're signing off on it. They're on the hook, but they don't get I feel like, and I've been to a HR seminar here recently by one of the law firms, and they were talking about the things and giving continuing education to these HR professionals, but I feel like it was the wrong information. It's like they're on the hook.
Yeah.
And they don't even know it. And they're spending and wasting so much money on these benefits that they could get for less, but they don't have a reason to.
Yeah, I was going to talk about, you did a video on this week, the PBM thing. So you want to talk maybe a little bit more detail on that?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, I saw this.
Yeah. So pharmacy benefit management is one of these plans. It's an ERISA plan. It's a entire Employee Retirement Security Act. It's like you, as an employee, you have certain rights. And if your company has a health insurance plan, depending on the size of the employees, there is, either self-pay or they can be fully insured. And even then, you don't know whether or not your employees, and you've got 4 people in human resources to cover 300 people, just making up a number. But do you think they need that phone call from somebody that's actually on a cancer drug or is on a weight loss drug or on ADD or ADHD meds? And why can't I be on this drug? You're sending me to this generic, which isn't even the same type of ADHD drug, which is really to screw up this kid or adult. So they don't want that phone call. So they trust their pharmacy benefit manager, which is somebody like me, but handles it on the healthcare side. Right. But they don't even know that they don't have their own data.
Yeah.
And they deserve that data, and they don't know to ask for it. And even when they want to ask for it, they're afraid that someone higher up in HR is going to get mad at them for asking for that data. And it blows me away because we're talking about 20% of cost, benefit cost, is for health insurance alone, right? And if you could say 30% of that, why wouldn't you? So, and it's not happening because people are used to paying it, They don't want to look at it. They're afraid to find out how much money they've wasted as a head of HR.
That's a big aspect of it. If I came to you and I said, look, I can cut 30% of your budget. One, nobody wants their budget cut because you lose budget, you're not as powerful, you're targeted for the next layoff. So part of that's baked into it. But the same thing is if I came to you and you're the CEO and I said, I got this consultant, he says he can cut our costs 30%. And then immediately you're going, why do I have to pay this guy? How long have we been overpaying for that? So it is difficult to dig in because it's not just that. It's not just pharmacy. It's how much we're paying to find people, what's going on with our compliance costs, what's our training.
Right.
There's so many disparate systems and others that are in place. HRIS, I tend to joke about it. I'll probably get yelled at if this ever gets out, but I say, I don't have HR tech. I have tech because it works.
Right.
And then I've taken you to conferences, and then he'll stop at a certain point. People outside the industry will look over and go, "Oh," because we're not data speakers. We're not there. I've had people yell at me. I look at spreadsheets all day. I'm like, that's exactly the point. You think that that's data. You have no clue of the systems, how it's created. Now we're getting there. There's a bunch of there's lots of startups and there's lots of stuff digging into it. I've got a friend who uses Anaplan on Workday that has the best workforce planning I've seen in years, which is hysterical because we used to use spreadsheets for it. But getting those people in and rewarding them and understanding what needs to be done and pulling all the strings, if we don't do it, people from outside, from finance are going to come in. They're going to start doing it, and HR is going to have to get a lot more professional because it has to be done. There's so much.
You need an adult in the room, and when I say that, I mean that. I mean, look, how much for benefits, right? So, going back to that part, that data that you guys are asking for, there has not been a new piece of software in the PBM space since 2006, since Medicare Part D came out.
Wow.
There's one company that's doing it now, and they're having a lot of resistance because they say the other ones are doing it wrong. And I've seen them on the stage. I've literally seen them on the stage with the others. And they're like, yeah. What can you do to catch up? Good luck.
I used to work with a guy whose parents did about half the acetaminophen in the world. And he figured he can make Tylenol safer. And nobody has an interest. And then we were going to fix vodka. We're going to make a liquor that is better for you. Not good, but better for you. He sued the government. It was basically, hey, literally, we can make hepatoprotective liquors. And nobody wants to hear it because if you have this one liquor that actually is not as bad for you, it's not good. That was the whole thing they couldn't say. It's not as bad for you. It means everything else is poison. And nobody wants to hear that. So you're fighting at some pretty big headwinds.
Yeah, I've got one for you just like that. It's a company that makes tagatose. Tagatose is like it's a rare sugar. They crack the code. They're able to actually make it where it's actually commercially, like they can afford it commercially. It literally breaks down plaque. It's healthy for you. It's 92% as sweet as sugar. You can bake with it, which is the biggest deal with a lot of these other things. You can't bake with them. So 92% is sweet, does everything else that sugar does, except it's healthy for you. And no one wants it because the FDA literally put a label on it saying you have to put added sugar or something because some sweetener thing because they're like, well, it's a big industry.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money you're displacing.
It's like, was it the wipers? The guy invented those perfect wipers.
Was it the speed of the wipers, the variable speed?
Made it like saved lives, and they bought it and then just sat on it because why do anything?
Yeah, right. Dunlop with the run flat tire. Too.
I mean,
There's all these things.
Yeah, I mean, well, sometimes those people are crazy, but we've had electric cars for some time, and big business. Well. God, I used to be so big business. Now I don't know what I am. That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's like what does everybody says? Oh, the parties didn't run away from. I didn't run away from the parties. They ran away from me. I feel like the whole country in some way, like every random thing. Like I don't even know what to define myself as anymore. It's not a skeptic.
No, it's I don't know. I just further and further.
I'm not woke, but I'm not awake.
So
I don't know what I am.
You're not awake?
I don't buy the whole pills thing. Why would you add pills? That's
what color pills?
Now there's all different
red
kinds
and the blue,
of pills.
Right?
I want a shirt that says woke but not awake.
Oh, that's not bad. I bet you we can turn to a screaming song we could put on a duet for TikTok.
I had something on sitting on innovation, right? Sitting on new technologies. Obviously, there's a like business side of that and a reason why to do it financially. But what about I have an example, right? My mom's a counselor, and the softwares they use and the systems they use are like 20 years out of date, like what you said, Frank, like 2006, right? Or older.
Peachtree, right?
Oh my God.
Oh, Peachtree accounting software? Yeah, that's old. Yeah.
So
yeah.
like what incentive is there? I don't think there's an incentive. What's the other aspect to adoption or like putting in the effort and resources to just learn and like get people onboarding people, I guess.
That's a really, really good point, because I've been arguing that software is dead. The usefulness of it, because everybody updates it. I had something the other day with Microsoft Outlook, and I was a Mac guy in Gmail. So I first went inside for a while, and I was working on it. I couldn't figure out where the darn search bar was. And my boss is making fun of me. I'm like, look, dude, I break algorithms. Don't tell me I don't understand software. This is just a bad UI update. It's a giant company. It's this big thing. Things change so much. When was the last time anybody at a company heard about a new software and went, hooray? No, because they're not building it for you. They're building it to do it the way they think that it
Just
needs
keep
to be done.
reinventing the same old software. Like, what is Telegram? What is Slack? What is Discord? What are all? It's just IRC. It's just IRC, but not as good because it's centralized and they charge you for access to what used to be a free product.
Is it all about UX, UI?
Well, that's the thing. You're trying to explain the difference between UI, UX, and research. It's not the same thing. I blame Google for all
Can you
of this.
explain that to me?
So, okay, UI is user interface.
Correct.
UX is user experience. And UX research is researching to decide what you're going to do. So you build a software that makes people do what you want. The question is, what is it that you wanted them to do and how they're going to react? That's the research aspect. And when people are building Auto Navigator for Capital One, or how to get you to click 30% more so that you finish your mortgage application, they're just running you down a path like a rat through a maze. And then they're like, well, this is what humans do. What's fascinating about that is when Google tried to figure that out, they were so confused with the 2016 election because they thought they knew how to make people do stuff. They could track it down. It didn't occur to them that off of Google, their behavior is different. That Bing and Google have different ones, and people who don't use any search engine are different. They really get so trapped in their worlds, they assume they know everything, forgetting that humans are weird. And so there's actually a lot to be said about just ignoring the UI.
Yep.
I've been doing that for years. You crack the code all the time. You ignore what they think, but you know what they're telling you, and you do what you think they were trying to get done. And it's all types of benefits in software from ignoring what they're telling you. Don't click that button. Think about what else if you did it another way. And that's, well, that starts to break stuff, but they get it dumber and dumber. You know,
The way I like to explain or dumb down the UI versus UX thing is UI, take a toaster. UI on the toaster is the buttons, the 1 to 9, how dark you want your toast, and how does the button work that pushes the toast down. The UX starts when you get the box, and you have to open the box, and you look at the manual, and you figure, how are you plugging this in? Does it have an app? What's the user experience top to bottom? What's it
Also,
like to buy
like
it?
how the toast tastes, right?
How's it taste at the end of it? Like, is it a pleasurable experience putting your toast in a toaster? Is it give you tech joy or whatever? Or is it just
that's what UX originally was.
Yeah.
They built it around. We used to hire people from Whirlpool. It was these they'd put them through the UX research, and they'd work for Whirlpool, because the whole question is, how do you make a washing machine work for a housewife? And then 3 years later, we're hiring those people to figure out how to make you click on more mortgages, because they were the only ones who ever knew of this thing. And the next thing you know, now UX is everywhere, UI is everywhere. So it was like a whole different kind of, and basically you're playing with software today based on the lessons we learned from housewives in the early 2000s. That's always the nice part. That's your history right there.
Ryan's upset he's never been called overqualified.
Oh, that's great.
When was the last time you put a resume together and applied?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, there's never been called overqualified, and then there's just unemployable. Like, I think all three of us, like, we're just.
I definitely couldn't work for a big corporation now. I paid somebody to recently do a resume for me, which also included a LinkedIn profile, because I needed it to apply for a certain license. And I looked at it, I was like, wow, I'd hire me. But knowing myself, I wouldn't hire me. It's like I can't do that political game anymore. But I mean, I guess I could if I had to, but it wouldn't bring me joy. And I'm far enough in life that I know that I need something that's going to bring me joy for a while. I suffered.
I feel like I'm being personally attacked right now.
You are.
Is it because I have PTO and I get a check every 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Because I have to admit, that is the nice part.
Yeah, I mean, the best part of
thing.
the best part of being a small business owner is that I can't fire myself. I could pay into social. I literally pay into unemployment.
Yeah.
Right?
I can't
Yeah, you
fire
can't ever get it
myself. I
back.
could never claim it.
Right.
When I went inside after 12 years running my own business, and I was so confused because even though I was in recruiting and I knew all this stuff, I didn't know when my first paycheck was going to be.
Yeah.
Because you're so used to getting it 45, 90 days after you did the work. When it showed up like 5 days in, because it was a pay period, I'm like, this
This
What?
is great.
What is, and how much am I supposed to work on vacation again? Like,
Yeah.
do I just?
Wait,
Like,
I have
didn't
insurance. I
understand
just
it.
click a button and it shows up. I know
just-
it comes
that's
out
so
of my check a
weird.
little bit, but I didn't have to pick it. I didn't have to come up I didn't have to look at all the employees and write down their dates of birth and
No,
stuff.
it is fascinating. It really is a whole different world.
Yeah.
But overqualified. Okay, let me just go after the overqualified argument for just a second, because no one gets to hear this from the sides of the recruiters ever.
Sure.
Because we're too busy working, putting people to work. So overqualified can mean a bunch of things, but let me pitch it just in terms of an MBA. So MBAs hate it when I say this, but this is good information for you. If you have an MBA and you put it on your LinkedIn profile at the top in your name, like you're a doctor, or if you put it on top of your resume, I'm never going to call you. Not because you have an MBA, because you're insufferable, and I know why you did that, because I have called 500 of those people, and no matter what you say, the next question is, well, I think I deserve 20% more because I have an MBA. And I'm like, this is not a public company that you need to do any of that. Why did you get an MBA? You did it because you were told 20 years ago or 10 years ago that was the next step, but you have no clue the purpose of one. So I don't want to listen to you tell me how qualified you are. I'm not saying hide it. If you have an MBA and I'm looking, put it on the resume. But if you put it in your title, it's not that you're overqualified. It's that you have no clue how the real world works, and you're trying to jump the queue because you spent $80,000 and have to justify it. Very hard for someone to hear that. But it's kind of like that argument. The first thing you should know about me is that I went to Stanford. And you're like, dude, you're 48. If that's the first thing that I need to hear about you,
So that brings up a good point. So this was in the past, maybe it's still true, but maybe you shorten it. It used to be that when you were first out of school, the first thing you had to do was all your education and like the merits that you had, because that shows that you're a gunner and
Right.
you're going after it. And then as time goes off, yeah, you could have a 10-page resume because you did a lot of stuff in that period of time, but now no one wants that either. So what's the happy medium?
Well, it's
what's
not
the
that nobody wants it.
What's the new way for people that are older, that are looking to get back into the workforce but can't figure out how to do something like that?
One is you have to. There's a switch that you flip in your head that people don't get, especially for executives, because they do this all the time. They'll write this horrific resume, and then because they're trying to capture everything that they've ever done in life. And what you really do is you go, okay, close your eyes first. It's the old trick that you do with graphic design, where you change the font or blow it up or just turn around and look at it differently. You say, okay, I've got a great candidate for you. I want you to hire that person. You hand them the resume and they read it and go, oh my God, I wouldn't hire this jerk. This is just versatile, worked in multifaceted environments across various industries. Like, you're trying to make something up. It doesn't occur to you that's what everybody said. So part of it is figure out what you really want to do and getting specific. And it's not one resume. It's not like you have to rewrite every one. It's like, what is the actual job? Do you know what it is and you're going after? It's about being specific. So if we're asking, I play this game with recruiters a lot. I'll sit down and I'll say, what did you do this weekend? How were you hanging out? Did you get a time? And then I'll stop and I go, okay, everybody, does anyone here know someone looking for a job? And everybody will say, oh, my brother-in-law, oh, I got the drywall repair, or they're focused because their head is focused on where those people were. If instead, then you go, you guys literally talk to people looking for jobs every damn day. But I tricked you by changing your focus. And that's what's happening when people try to imagine what they would do for a job. They're not thinking about what they actually did. They're not thinking about the work or what it's like on the other side when they were hiring. They're just thinking, in my head, what does it look like? I want my resume to look a certain way. And they don't realize that everybody does that. And because everybody did it, it's really boring. I have no interest in the variety. It's like someone saying, oh, I did a call center back in the 80s, or I used to make 500 phone calls. And you're like, you still think you can? Well, sure. You're like, no, you haven't done it in 25 years. You're out of your mind. because they're so afraid. It's that FOMO. If they said, I want these 5 jobs for these 5 companies, you can go get a job now. But instead, they want to boil the ocean because they've been tricked by computers and software to think, try anything because you don't want to miss out, as opposed to get focused, make changes, be a human being, don't be software. You shouldn't look for jobs by looking at an Excel sheet, but that's what job boards are. Why? Your brain can't handle that. And now you think, oh, there's 28,000 jobs. No, there's like 3 for you that you would take and would go to, but you think there's 28. You're setting off the dopamine levels.
And this is the time where all the young men and women are graduating from college right now. And I had a conversation at one of these parties with my niece's boyfriend, who was a double E from A&M. I was like, good for you. I was like, have you got
Guaranteed
a
job,
job? Are you set? Like, he goes, yeah, I've got it all lined up. I'm doing an internship with this big company, and hopefully they'll turn that into a full-time job. And I was like, okay, so what are your options? He goes, I don't know. When I get there, they're just going to kind of tell me the different options I have. I was like, you should probably do some research and try to figure out, because if you don't come up with what you really want to be interested in that double E, they're going to put you where they need you, which may not be the best place for you to go in 5 or 10 years, all because you didn't look.
That is actually something we have done horrible. It was about 15 years ago. I was calling around a bunch of people in Austin, tracing everybody in social media. Used to be a social media headhunter when that was a thing. And I would talk to these kids, and if I ask you a question, Mark, what do you want to do in your next job? That's a pretty standard question. When I asked these kids that, they would be all chatty and happy because the headhunter called them and they're talking about what they're doing. What do you want to do in your next job, Caitlin and Bryce? And they'd be like, they'd freeze. And they'd quickly into the conversation, and they would never call back. You do that about 70, 80 times. You're like, something's off here. The secret was instead asking, what do you want your next job to do for you? And that would open the floodgates, because they were taught, you go to school, you don't go to work. Only poor people go to work. You go to school, you go to work, you go to this club, you get the merit club, you graduate, and then because of your awesomeness, a company selects you and tells you what to do. We told them that was the case, and that was in before 2008, when all those people came in. It was a very tough economy. It's hard to get those jobs. We trained people to not work till 22 or 25, and then we're surprised when they say things like, so let me get this straight. I've got to show up every day at the same time and make noodles the way you tell me with no autonomy. That doesn't seem like I want to do the strategy behind making noodles. That's actually a very famous old video they used to play at restaurants. Because we taught them that. And then we're surprised because we've slashed managers. So, I mean, a lot of it is weeding our seed corn.
So I'm remembering the talent net that we went to when we had the robot.
Oh, yeah.
And you had the panel with the Zoomers. Is this like the generation you're talking about?
No, it was the millennials before that. So 10 years before that.
The Zoomers, you were the broad generalization was that they had to believe in the company's holisticness
right.
That was an interesting. Is that still the case?
Not at all.
Like 5 or 6 years.
That's just people who don't understand data making up surveys.
Okay.
It's like asking people every year. We ask, what company do you want to work for? This is going to surprise you. It's the most popular brands. It's not the most. It is literally what you know. Hey, which person are you going to vote for? The one I've heard of before. I mean, that literally is all that it is.
Yeah.
But the thing that they forgot that we were once told. Where the Gen Z, I think, is a lot different is they don't mind doing the hard work. Millennials were told, don't do hard work. Go get your degree. You're an elite. You'll be better. And of course, that was just what we saw in the media. The people who fought in Afghanistan, they didn't have that. The ones who went to community colleges, the ones who were doctors, people who went out into the trades. It was just the people writing in social media and marketing in nice colleges and in nice schools that went into fortune and it would show up in the mag. So we created this image of millennials that was based on rich kids living in cities who had nothing to do but write about their friends living in cities. So we created this idea, and now, this is what millennials are like. And you're like, dude, they fought 2 wars. Of all the generations, they're the only ones there that still actually went out there. Those are big things. The Zoomers, like, the big difference for them is they came out and they're like, well, what's in it for me? I'll work hard, but don't tell me I need to do it to pay my dues. Because that was the thing, because it doesn't pay off because my dad lost his job, my grandpa lost his job, my grandmother's working 2 jobs at 71. Don't tell me I'm paying my dues when I'm competing with them for the same job. What am I going to learn? How are you going to treat me? What's going to happen? And that's where companies really focused on what's in it for you. That's where they started winning. And then there's a lot of really good college recruiting places, but it's nurses and engineers. What do you do if you did underwater basket weaving? What do you do if you were a history or English major? You know,
Right.
It's there's just a lot of bad information floating around there. It's like finance. You know, I mean, who do you trust on the stock market? The cabbie or the person who went to school for 20 years? Honestly, it's kind of a coin flip.
Look, I don't disagree with you on a lot of that. The thing that I find that differentiates different people that are actually willing to help people with finances is the money management part is the easiest part of my job, right? It's the part that takes the least amount of time, because if you're actually investing, not trading, right? If you're investing, you're picking a company
How
that
many
you think
people
is
know
going to
that
do
that's
that,
not
right?
the same thing?
The second part of that, though, is then when you're talking to somebody and they call you up because they just sold their business and they now are working for a company during that period where they have to actually do something, and they're like, they have to vent to someone. Who are they going to vent to? This guy. Who's the guy that's actually going to make sure how they actually deposit that money and make sure that they don't actually put it in their own personal name, because, you know, vice versa. Like, the things that a financial advisor do is
I
like
didn't
makes
know
it
that.
humanized.
I haven't
Yeah.
sold a company, but I had no clue that you're not supposed to toss it into your own bank account.
Well, like, it depends, right? One might be an asset sale. One might be like you're taking the money from one corporation and you're putting it in your personal name. That would then immediately potentially generate a capital gain.
So definitely ask Frank about finance and not the cabbie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for crypto, who do I listen to, the cabbie or Mark?
Well, I mean,
agree. That's trading.
Well, no. Here, look, can I shag that for 2 seconds?
Sure, go ahead.
So here's the thing that I find fascinating is that, like, of all the types of things that we should be able to help our clients with, that's one we can't. Whether you're a financial advisor, crypto.
Oh,
Let's say for a moment, and this is a real story, but I had a client, or not a client, I had a lady call up whenever I was doing radio interviews, and she said, my son told me that he doesn't have to go to school anymore because he's a crypto millionaire. What am I supposed to do? And I was like, this is not a conversation that I want to have on the phone. But what I did say to her was like, the only good thing is that, like, if he's under 18 and you can get his key from him, it's your money. Right? It's not 18 yet.
It's not child labor
You know?
if it's your
Right.
kid. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was that. But the other part of that equation, isn't that terrible? But
I've seen what these kids are spending it on. Yeah.
But the things that's crazy is that, like, you know, if somebody did come to me and they did have that kind of crypto millionaire, I wouldn't be the one that would be able to tell them to do anything. Like, I could have an opinion whether I like an annuity or I hate an annuity. At least I know what an annuity is, and I can tell you the positives and negatives. I can't even do that with crypto, right?
Well, yeah, and then even talking to someone who is legitimately a crypto expert doesn't necessarily they're going to give you good investment trading advice, because if you ask me about PayPay coin or Dogecoin, I'm going to tell you it is like going to the casino, and if you listen to me, you're going to miss out on generational wealth, because a lot of people became millionaires off of that.
Agreed.
You got it really early.
Sounds like
And sold.
that hit a sore spot, Mark.
No, I mean, it's not even a sore spot. It's just like, you know, I just don't listen to me when
They mistake knowing crypto and blockchain. The same thing with that. They assume that's about getting wealthy, and that's not it. It's a program.
This is no different than my father. So my father was an actual computer in the Korean War. And what that was is he was the guy that was good at math,
someone that
and he was the
computed,
one that told artillery where to fire,
Yeah.
right? So he actually learned when he was very, very young. He was going to the track with his brother back in, Dad was born in 1930. So smart guy. And fast forward to I'm working at Fidelity. I'm in New York, but I'm still young in finance. I come back. My father's fighting cancer, and so we go to the track, the one here, the Class B track or whatever here in Texas. And he's telling me how he wins. He's like, well, this horse is a mutter. You can see he's pointing towards this race, and you've got this and you've got that. And so that's why I bet $3 on this horse. And I just looked at him and I said, I could have gone to Harvard. But you know what happened? He got out of the Korean War and he bought a gold mining stock, and it went to zero, and he never invested again,
Right.
other than his pension.
Right.
And that's the same kind of general wealth story that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And there is a luck factor, not just with crypto, with any of those things
Right.
that people
Right.
don't
Yeah,
That's
you get
trash.
burned the first time without understanding what's going on. Somebody tells you buy Dogecoin, it goes to zero. Maybe they never invest in crypto again. But meanwhile, if their friend or they had some advice and someone helped them try to figure it out. So yeah, there's an that's the fear.
And that's a huge problem with crypto as well. I mean, you've got outright scams that occur that sour people on crypto, which is a great and wonderful tool for financial freedom and all the other things that it's good for. But then you've got situation, and this is another topic I wrote about in the Diseconomy of Memes paper I mentioned a couple weeks ago, is you got Elon Musk, he's pumping Dogecoin and literally doing actual pump and dump scams. Like it's on the blockchain, you can prove it. And if you go back another bull bust cycle and you look at the biggest scam of that period of time, which was an actual Ponzi called BitConnect, and the amount of money that was lost
BitConnect.
Yeah, exactly right, the big meme. So the actual amount of money that was lost by the general public in BitConnect was a factor, like an exponential factor less than the people who lost money trading against Elon Musk on Dogecoin. Based on his tweets, like he was getting people into it and he was just dumping on the public. And so you're basically someone who is regarded as probably the biggest booster of cryptocurrency in the business class, the entrepreneur class, has actually caused more people to get wrecked as an early trader investor in the space.
Investment Advisor Act of 1940 says that you are not supposed to be giving advice, period, without a license, right? And and there's actually called painting the tape, which is where me and you, I call you and say, hey, buy this, buy 100 shares of this, buy 100 shares of this, and you're moving the market like with 100 shares at a time.
Right.
And it's illegal, right? And we aren't enforcing that. And then you have bad actors that see that you're not enforcing it, but have scales of money more than we do. And if you're not going to go after them, why wouldn't they?
Exactly.
And I'm not saying
is GameStop going burr anytime soon? Is it we've given up on that? I mean, is it because of the Netflix video and now it's dead?
But they're here in Dallas. Does anyone know anyone that works for GameStop?
Yeah, I actually do.
You do?
Well, I mean, I'm recruiting. So.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's true. That's true.
I'm like, I don't know that I've ever driven by a GameStop in Dallas.
They're all over the place. You have.
Okay.
There's one up at the Star. There's one up on El Dorado and McKinney. I see them all the time. Of course, I know. It's just because you haven't thought about it.
Yeah.
It's like I'd never seen a Kia in my life, and I had no clue what a crossover was. And then I noticed my mother and sister had them. Now I see Kias everywhere. And then I bought a crossover, and oh my God, it's like everybody has a crossover. Like you don't notice it until you've heard it, and then it's there's some good marketing stuff behind that. It's called consistency, and until you haven't seen it, but now that you've mentioned it, you'll start seeing them everywhere.
Yeah, it just blows me away. I'm
like,
like,
they
okay,
must
Bed
really
Bath
be
& Beyond.
growing. I'm seeing them everywhere.
Oh my goodness.
But just don't give the advice.
Yeah, right.
Right.
That is so wild. You can't give advice.
No, and at the very least, to be able to say, hey, you know what, maybe take some off the table, regardless of whether or not, there are people doing it anyway.
You haven't called just pull back?
Well, I mean, luckily, no one really talks about it. People are pretty tight to the vest. I hired somebody recently to help me with my bookkeeping, and she started watching some of these and noticed that, because luckily we have the disclaimer, this is all just talk. This isn't financial advice. And she realized that I actually knew more than I was talking about and started asking me stuff. And I just started laughing. I was like, yeah, I've been doing a lot of this stuff for a while, focusing on it. I just can't talk about it.
Right,
and it's a shame because, it's on both sides. Should I do this? I'm like, I know what you do for a living. It's probably not a good idea, right? Or you've got a bunch of money, maybe throw some at the wall and in a broad-based basket of blah and just see what happens. Not a lot of money, but a little bit, because you never know.
Yeah.
Right. Home Depot. Take a look at Home Depot. And I don't know the numbers. I really do need to do this one. But if you would have invested $2,500 in Home Depot at their IPO, you'd be worth $1 million. That I know for sure, because that was true whenever I was graduating from college.
Right.
And so, it's going to work somewhere.
If you bought it when it was way up the top, you would.
Yeah, then maybe not.
And then you never want to do it again. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is why the only financial advice I ever give anybody is dollar cost average, because it's one of the things that works for pretty much any investment or trading strategy, right? Is you're going to defray risk, and unless you're buying it at starting your investment or your trading patterns at the absolute bottom, you're almost always going to be best served by dollar cost averaging.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Also,
your average
saving
cost,
20% of your salary from the very first job at Iraq's. That's what my cousin did. He's the only one who's like totally nailed finances.
He actually did
at
the example.
15, my grandfather told him, save 20% of your salary. Because what happens is when you get a raise, when you get a new job, you're still happy because you got more, because obviously you end up, he just was religious with it. Now he has houses. He's got like 6 kids. They're like, how did you get so disciplined? And I'm like, honestly, because he was taking 20%. It's a simple thing if you did it at 15.
Let me one up you.
22%?
No, just when your child is born, start putting money into an IRA for them. You know, if you have a company that you have to do any marketing whatsoever, I don't know if this is going to sound so horrible. If you could find a way to use your child with marketing materials, then you can pay your child, and you can write off, you know, up to 100%, up to the $5,000 for their IRA or whatever that number is.
That's not bad at all.
You do that until they're 18 years old, and then they never put a dime into their retirement. They're going to retire with $1 million. Now, is $1 million enough now? Who knows? But, like, you know, as cost of living increases happen, you can do that from the very beginning of time.
You read stuff like that, and then because like you see it in some random idea on a Reddit thing or in some magazine or something like that. There's the one, put your kids on your credit cards when they're 12. Get a credit card for them. Never hand it to them. But they ended up, when they move on, they have this 25 years of, assuming you have good credit, of course.
Yeah.
They have 25 years. I'm like, but is this positive or negative? That sounds cool. I don't know if it's true. But you just gave an 18-year-old a 780 score or something like that. That's
they're
going to
blow
go
that
badly.
One. Yeah, that's not going to work well for you unless you've actually they actually had their own company and their own job.
And like, does
while
it even
doing
work? Is that actually true? I mean, how would you test that?
With credit? No, it doesn't work.
It may not even work in your favor right now because look what they're doing with the mortgages. So it's like, are you doing them a favor by giving them your credit?
It's really easy. You just borrow a cash advance for the down payment
and default on it.
Yeah.
And then, well, no, because you want to come back later on. And then after you've gotten it, you use that to pay off. More, you trick them.
Get the nice car and don't make a couple of payments, and then go after the house mortgage.
Right.
Frank, are you following
not financial advice?
Are you?
This is not financial advice.
Frank, are you following your own advice? Because Messi is going to be rich.
Oh my goodness, that dog.
This is political advice. This isn't financial advice. There's a huge difference.
Oh, that dog. No, boy, she's a great dog. Great dog.
There we go.
Yeah,
great dog. So how are we doing on time? It's been
We're about an hour.
For about an hour? Okay. Well, any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
I just think that now that these young men and women are graduating from college in the next week or so, do you have any last-minute advice that you think they should do?
Be the person that people turn to. I know a lot of the young, I know a lot, but I know a lot of kids under 25, and some of them are just fantastic. And it's that old thing of, if you're going to put the chairs up, this person's next to you helping out. Like, there are still people that are working hard. There are ones that have great jobs and ones that are not just going crazy out there. They're not all on TikTok. There's still lots of good folks out there in the world. Model yourself after those folks. Because that influencer stuff, that's my big thing, is stay away from that stuff. Because when those people finally figure out that AI takes over all of your roles, they'll have no skills. They'll be child stars who were once cool and will never again get back to the summit. And then I don't know what they're going to do, but they'll be ruined. They're going to be working at a call center at 38, talking about how they were once an influencer at 17. So stay away from those folks because they're not cool. They're temporarily famous.
All right. Mark, what do you got?
Oh, buy more Bitcoin.
Awesome.
really the only advice I don't know. I mean, honestly, but the one piece of advice that's kept me somewhat employable, or at least busy my whole life, is just staying on the cutting edge of technology. Like, you can't go wrong just learning technology for the sake of learning it. Whether or not you actually use it, is going to make you competitive in the marketplace. It's going to make you that much more attractive to those that are going to want to put you to work, and you're going to have an edge on everybody else. Technology is a big equalizer.
Yeah, I think keep reading and keep learning is it, because
be interesting.
For me, like, there's no way I'm ever going to learn to code ever, but at least I could recognize that somebody else probably can, and I might need to hire that guy.
Right.
You know, so.
Okay, so that's That's our roundtable for the week. So hope you enjoyed it. We went live this week. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, smash them all. I don't know why Google decided to chime in on that one, but yeah, hit like, hit subscribe, and share it with your friends if you like it. See you next week.